So I think that, walking and running and cycling, it can make a town really strong. And I think the more a town recognizes that anybody outside a car should be held safely, as Bruce commented, and make it a walking, running, biking focused town is going to be fantastic. I think it's like schools. To me, schools help with how a town's valued. And I think that whatever we can do as a committee, sidewalks and biking lanes and running lanes or whatever it is only for the better. So yeah, I bumped into Nate a few years ago, and I think I reached out to him last year, as I told Keith, and said, hey, I heard you're on this committee. Don't know much about it, but long story short, he reached out a couple months ago, had a nice chat. Keith and I caught up a few weeks ago. My wife and I have been in town now for 24 years, I think. We're up here off at Congress, about a mile from the High Ho, north of St. Pius. Spawned a couple of kids. One of them went, where they went to school. The other one did not. Um, so actually, my wife just left with my daughter, and they went up to walk at Larson Sanctuary. So we do a lot of walking up at Larson. I'm on the, I guess, Friends of Larson group, if you want to call it that, up there, which is great. Mary's on there too. I chair my council at my church here in town, the Greenfield Hill Congregational Church. Just started that role about 2 months ago. So I've been active there for 20 some years. Been on the board of Operation Hope. For those who know Operation Hope here in town, I was on the board after I sold my company, I think almost 20 years ago, a long time ago. But yeah, it's a great town. Great purpose here, what we're doing. I'm looking forward to serving. So thank you for allowing me to participate.
Thanks. Can everybody hear me, Laura? I saw your text message. I have no idea how to turn up my microphone volume because I'm actually having to call in on a phone line to make sure that people that are offline can do it. So I'm on like 3 different lines here. So hopefully people can hear me.
We're good.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Oh,
I can hear you, Keith. You're just not very loud. That's all. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, okay. Let me just go really quickly. Maybe Karen, if you want to stay, or kind of go quickly, we'll just introduce the members of the committee. We've got Karen, Linda, Laura, Sarah, and Mike on the call tonight. So, well, we'll do the introductions kind of towards the end, I think, because we do have a guest speaker, and I want to be respectful of his time. First off, though, I do want to thank Sarah. Thank you so much for putting together that press release for the Wilson Street. I saw it in the patch, and I had a few people actually just message me and stuff like that. So it's nice to see some of our work getting out there in the press and getting spread around. So that's great. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
You're most welcome. And I want to let you know that I spoke to Greg Marcoux at the Fairfield Citizen this morning. He wanted to interview me, so he's going to be doing an article as well.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
It's great because I think that as we start looking for some of these other projects, and I know Judith, you're here as well, because it's another kind of area that we're looking at. So, it's just great to have that positive feedback from what the work the committee is doing. So thank you for that. And Mike, thank you so much for taking the notes tonight. I know it's not your strong suit, so I am going to really request again somebody would step up to the secretary's role. It's a kind of a thankless job, but so is being the chair. So I'm just trying to balance all of the requests and everything. So I do want to introduce Bruce Donald. He's the Tri-State Coordinator for the East Coast Greenway Alliance and the Chairman of the CT Greenways Council. Hopefully I got that right. But we had a call about a month ago when I met the other Bruce, talking again about the Merritt Parkway Trail, and there's been, just more talk about this. I've brought it up at the place that I work with some of the senior people there because it kind of does go near, that part of the Merritt Parkway. But then Bruce Donald was telling me a lot of the work that he's done with funding and other projects, and I figured I'd just turn it over to you, kind of share some of your wisdom with the committee on how you've been able to push some of these projects around the state of Connecticut through. So, Bruce.
Thank you. So this is my second career. I was reminded in February that I've been building trails in Connecticut for 20 years, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. It's also kind of crazy that I get paid to do what I love. And so there you go, right? You think I have a chance of sharing my screen?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know if I have, I don't use WebEx ever, but Yeah, you should just be able to share it, right?
Should be able to.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
share option.
Right
here.
at the bottom. Yep.
And Mike is on the caller.
Ah,
It's at the bottom. There you go.
There we go.
Yep. That works.
Yeah.
all right. Let's see if I can actually do this. Hey, look at that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm going to talk a little bit about background, who the actors are, quite a bit about funding, and then some projects that are ongoing right now. I pieced this together off of our GIS. We do basically every inch of the East Coast Greenway in Connecticut now online. So if you go to map.greenway.org, you can go into enormous detail on where it's supposed to go and where it currently is. So 200 miles in Connecticut. You can see it's circuitous, but that's really more an issue of opportunity than anything else, because the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail, which you see in the middle there, is rapidly approaching being completed. And as you go east, so is a lot of the east too. And I can talk about that if you want to, but I'm going to focus on the fact that the East Coast Greenway in Connecticut, somewhere around 2026, is going to be about 62% complete, because there's a tremendous amount of money being poured into it by DOT. And you'll see obviously down below there, the proposed Merritt Parkway Trail. And you see that little piece of blue in Stamford. Well, that little piece of blue in Stamford is still there, but it's now basically moribund, because in my capacity as the chairman of the Connecticut Greenways Council, I put together a grant of $200,000 to do a design study, and they voted it down, which is still stunning to me after 15 years of working in Stamford. So here we are. This is a mess, and it was always designed to be a mess. I helped Fitzgerald and Halliday put this map together a few years ago, but I did want you to know that one of the things that's occurring in Connecticut is that a lot of point-to-point connections are starting to be made in the state, biped connections, off-road, safe connections. And it's become kind of a hallmark for communities to be able to do that. And you see right here, that's the big long Farmington Canal Heritage Trail, which goes from New Haven all the way up to Northampton, Mass, 84 miles. This is the airline trail here. This is the Charter Oak right there, which got a gap in it. The Hot River Trail, which is almost done. There's just one more bridge at Willimantic. And so you're going to see a lot of these trails being finally built out. And then another thing you should look for, it's coming up first week of June, is the Connecticut Trail Finder, which is a brand new thing. That's going to have all of the trails in the state on it for the first time ever. And that was another thing that we funded through the Rec Trails program. And I'll talk more about funding mechanisms in a minute. So here we are, or actually I would argue here we aren't. So this was proposed. The Merritt Parkway was designed in the 1930s to have a bridle path on the side of it. Never happened. But it's interesting to note that it was designed to have another spot where people could, promenade and in fact ride a horse and other things. But it never did occur, and that's one of the reasons why early on the East Coast Greenway and many other people, including Connecticut DOT, glommed onto the fact that this was a right-of-way in the public domain that went from point to point in an area that you're all very familiar with. I used to live in Wilton when I was commuting into the city for my first work program back in the day, and I know the area well. It's dense, and there aren't a lot of opportunities to go from point to point on a right-of-way that's clearly defined. Okay, so who are the actors? We've got Ned Lamont, who is finally showing interest in bike ped, and I would refer to the current budget that's in front of the legislature. I spent hours, because it's Zoom now, waiting to publicly comment on some of that, but it's a bright spot this time around. So the next 2-year budget does indeed have more money for bike ped in it, and not just federal money, but state money. Mr. DOT is still something of a wild card. I've met him once. He says the right things, but our previous commissioner, Jim Redeker, was really gung-ho about these projects. Commissioner of Deep, Katie Dykes, I've met a number of times. She's great, but Deep, while controlling the Rec Trails program, doesn't really have a pot to piss in right now. They've got a horrible budget deficit and some real problems. Another set of actors, the MPOs, which are called COGS in Connecticut. In fact, I just gave a substantial portion of what you're going to see right now to CROG the other day. They are the gateways to much of the money that you might be looking for, particularly for not so much design, but for construction. The legislatively appointed boards. I am the chairman of the Connecticut Greenways Council. That's one of them. The other one is the Connecticut Bike Ped Advisory Board. That's kind of the child of Connecticut DOT. And instead of working on greenways in particular, they tend to work on policy as opposed to the Greenways Council. Advocacy, of course, and I have down the Fairfield BPAC just because I'm talking to you. But obviously, there's a ton across the state of people that are trying to get these projects done. And these last three, this is the three-legged stool that I sometimes talk about. You have to have strong advocacy. You have to have community support. And by that, I also mean town staff, right? So the engineer, the planner, and then, of course, you have to have the elected officials. And if you have all three, then the funding mechanisms, and by that, I mainly mean Connecticut DOT, start to perk up and listen, because they realize that the community is involved and wants this project, and many others too. This is kind of our boilerplate, but transportation policy in the last 10 years has changed in Connecticut. And basically bike ped, active transportation, whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of planner speak, obviously. But it is now really a genuine part of transportation policy. Linear parks, which is what really they used to be thought of, but they're now the new public meeting space in communities. Obviously health, pollution and noise abatement, community amenities that provide interesting things in terms of economic development and tourism. They bring people into the communities. They actually raise the tax base, because there's a number of studies that have been done that when we build these trails, property values increase dramatically along the trail. So there's actually some unintended consequences that when we were starting to look at these 30 years ago, we didn't know any of this stuff. But it's suddenly become apparent that these are real economic development things too. And then I would add, of anything you could build in terms of transportation, and I'm talking about a local road, I'm talking about the $1.5 billion I-91 flyaway ramp in New Haven. These are the only ones that have a very low cost and a very quick return on investment. I bring up that flyaway ramp in New Haven because they'll never return that investment in a million years. So that's something that can always be talked about when we're talking about these projects. So let's talk about funding for a minute. Let's Go Connecticut had gone moribund after our former governor left and our new governor came in. However, it passed in almost the secret December bonding agenda that got very little press because I think it was in December. But suddenly $10.8 million, this program funded a lot of things, and I'll show you some of the things it's funded in a few minutes. And there's another thing that's happening, and this doesn't affect you folks so much because you don't have trail right now, major league built out trail. But it looks like there's going to be a $6 million fund for trail maintenance going forward as well. So this is picked up from Malloy's agenda. And this is why I go back to the fact that it looks like Lamont has started to really kind of drink the Kool-Aid about these projects, and he has put some of this money back in the budget. You may have heard about community connectivity, and I don't know, I didn't actually look to see if Fairfield got a grant already or not, but this is, well, they state 125 to 600 grand, mostly for bike ped intersections, sidewalks, safety audits, ADA compliance, and things like that. And it's been a very successful program. Another one, Connecticut LOTSIP, which is the Local Capital Improvement Program, that has funded all sorts of different things,
Hey, Bruce, I
including.
just wanted to interrupt you for just a second. I think Bill Hurley wanted to make a comment. He's our town engineer. Bill, go ahead.
Oh, Bill, yeah.
Thank you, Keith. Sorry about that. We do have the Southport Connectivity Grant. It's at 70% design, and we hope to put it out to bid this summer and construct it in the fall of this year. That when that one's done, we might be eligible for the next round of connectivity grants. But for this year, we were ineligible because we have the one already. Just wanted to highlight that for you.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that because if you've got a grant outstanding, and that's kind of where I was going, is you're not eligible currently. But my understanding is they're going to re-up this program every year. DOT is excited about it. It's been very successful. I think they've given out something like 81 grants now. So that's 81 towns, right, out of 169. So they're doing pretty well. Okay, this is DEEP's Connecticut Recreational Trails Program. We are the only state in the country that doesn't take the federal Recreational Trails Program grant. There's a reason for that, and that is because we were getting about $900,000 with enormous overhead and difficulty to administer the federal program. So much so that DEEP was charging back to the program about a third of that money just to administer it. So it became ridiculous. So what we did was about 9 years ago, asked DOT and DEEP to design a program where Connecticut could bond rec trails money. Initially, it was thought to be $5 million a year, and 1 year it was, but that was the only year that we did that. It's been predominantly $3 million a year. Again, lately with the 2-year gap, the last 2 years because of the incoming administration. But it is back in the governor's budget. And this program is an 80-20 match. And here's some of the nuts and bolts. It is out of committee. It's out of finance and bonding. So it looks like it should pass in the current transportation budget that still hasn't been voted on. So keep your fingers crossed. But we have, and this is vetted by my council, the Greenways Council. And we've spent out, I say spent's not the right word. We have granted to date $11.8 million. It's been an enormously successful program, not the least of which because it's one of the few programs, because the feds don't do this. Being a state program, we spend a lot of time and effort looking for design grants and feasibility grants and those types of things, as well as things that just are too small for DOT to even look at. So, a bridle path or, a local path to a school, things like that are very popular for this program. And I talk about the cogs here. This is more of a nuts and bolts type of page here. But essentially, ultimately, if you want to get the federal TAP money, which is the Transportation Alternatives since the original Ice-T Act of 1991, is primarily what's been building the multi-use trails in Connecticut. It's 90-10, well, it used to be 80-20, but the DOT has been kind of pushing money at it to make sure that municipalities actually approve the grants. So they're kind of more like 90-10. And in fact, you can bill back to it. And so the town's in kind can be used for that 10% buyback as well. This will certainly survive after 21 federally. Then there's, of course, the Federal Recreational Trails Program, which we don't do. And then some other things like CMAQ and a bunch of other programs that are just kind of starting to be twisted around to be used for bike ped. All right, I want to talk about projects a little bit because I don't think people understand how invested Connecticut DOT is in the East Coast Greenway and its route. This is current. This is as of January of this year. And I've got the Airline Trail Crossings Project, which is a TAP project, $5.1 million, almost done. It'll be done in May. And then you can see this. It's a who's who. And I'm going to talk about some of these, by the way. I'm going to talk about New Haven, Southington, and Plainville specifically. I've got slides for you. But important to note, funded, right? At the very bottom, 12 projects, 19 miles, $45.5 million. That's funded right now. And there's a ton more in the pipeline. And I'd love to get you folks in that pipeline, right? That's ultimately what we're trying to do. Okay. Some people refer to this as my bridge. It's not really true. But I've been working on this section of the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail literally for that 20 years that we've been talking about. And it finally came to fruition a few years ago. But I bring this project up because this was the first project in the state built solely with Connecticut bonding. Previously, all of these very fancy projects were built with federal TAP money, which is what I was talking about before. So this is a great example of something that was put together wholly with state money. And it's stunning if you ever get a chance to get up there. All right, this is New Haven Phase 4 from Yale, which is, you see down here, begin Phase 4. There's Yale at the top of Grove Street. And wending its way down to Long Wharf, which is already built. And in fact, if you can follow my cursor, this piece here is a new cycle track that was built 2 years ago. That's built too. So this piece right here has the stunning price tag of $10.9 million for 1.5 miles. It has that price tag because if you look at this red dotted line here, that is a tunnel underneath the city. It's a tunnel underneath the FBI building. It's a fascinating project. It went to bid twice. All the bids were too high, so they added more money into it. But this is a case study in how desperate a city is to get everything connected. And so, and I would also say to you that once you get in a position where you can connect things from point to point, money will be found at the state level. Trust me. This is like the poster child of that type of project. Farmington Canal Heritage Trail in Southington. This is Southington Phase 3, 2.4 miles, $1.8 million. A lot different price tag because railroad right-of-way is existing. It is in the public domain. This is going to be 10 to 12 foot wide paved multi-use trail, ADA compliant, and it's going to go to bid shortly for completion in 23. And the only reason why it's completion in 23 is there is a bridge over the Quinnipiac River. Otherwise, it'd be done next year. Plainville. Plainville is the last gap in the entire Farmington Canal Heritage Trail in Connecticut. It is going to be 3 phases. This is phase 1 from the end of Southington, which I just showed you, down here. This is unique because it's wending through a forest, which is owned by the town. But you may see something interesting there to the left. That's the original Farmington Canal. This is going to be built on the towpath of the original Farmington Canal. And SHPO loves it. The historical commissions love it. It's going to be really quite stunning when it's done. This has taken forever. This is the last town to embrace this. It's almost something of a Gold Coast of Connecticut's type of situation where there was a lot of NIMBYs. There were a lot of people that did not want this. You can see all these houses here, and this is their backyard. This is where some of these people grew up, and it's only recently where we've had almost everybody sign off. There's going to be very few takings. In fact, only one that I know of. So this has kind of come full circle. This has a lot to do with the fact that so much of the rest of the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail is complete. And the people now here don't have the trail, but they go up here to a parking lot and use the trail, or they go down here and use the trail, and suddenly they say, okay, it's time. So that's my contact information. I didn't want this to be crazy long, so let's see if I can get out of here.
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, I was actually, I just sent you a little note that we had about only just a few minutes so I get through the rest of the agenda tonight. But I did think that's really valuable and just kind of hear what other towns are doing. And I was maybe just going to open it up to the committee or anybody else if they had questions for you.
And again,
so Bruce, just quick question on the protagonists. Who are those? All seem like friendly people. Who are the ones that aren't the protagonists or aren't the friendly protagonists?
Right. So
or challenging people.
So those are the people basically on that slide that would help with funding, designing, building. The people that you're talking about are the people that I uncharitably call the NIMBYs, but there are others too. In particular, in the Merritt Parkway corridor, you've got the Merritt Parkway Heritage. Oh dear, I keep forgetting the name of the whole. I met the new president, who's actually a nice guy, but they're against this. They think that we would be bulldozing their delicate ecosystem. And actually, that's really not the case. In fact, it would be the first time that people could actually walk on their delicate ecosystem and preserve it. But case in point, right? So, and then the other thing is abutting landowners that are concerned that there could be potentially crime, there could be people rooting around in their garage. Almost universally not true. In fact, over the years, we've put up berms, solid fencing, and there's a famous case in Simsbury, Connecticut, where we put up fencing all along the corridor next to a condominium association, and people ever since have been chainsawing doors out so they can get to the trail. So, but that it's real. I mean, there are people that will come out of the woodwork to decry these types of things. It's better than it used to be because there's such a preponderance of evidence that these projects are so good for communities and so valuable to the community that a lot of that's gone away, but there are still people.
Hey, Bruce,
Yeah.
Scott here. So that was very helpful. I've always wondered what's going on with, I guess, the inklings of what I've read about this from time to time. So interesting from an educational standpoint to know what the Alliance is all about. I wrote down you really want to get us in the DOT pipeline. So can you tell more? I mean, what are the objectives to share that or get us involved in that capacity?
So as a practical matter, that's an issue of bootstrapping a and making essentially putting together a project. And that project, traditionally, in order to attract funding, needs to be connective. It needs to go from point to point. It needs to be within a range that doesn't choke people in terms of what it's going to cost. And that's traditionally somewhere south of $5 million in that range. And I say that because most of the construction grants out there would come with some sort of a payment that the town would have to make. So the town would actually have to vote this. And there's an issue where you start coming up with a really big dollar amount. You know, if, for instance, we're talking about in between the two Sacred Heart campuses, which has been bandied about, there's other opportunities too, but you know, that is not going to come with an enormous price tag. There are not going to be huge engineered structures like a massive bridge, for instance. There might be some small bridges. There might be some drainage construction, but in general, you know, that's going to keep the price relatively low. So what you try to do is package that project in such a way that you're at, you know, a low level of design, 30% design. It's already passed through a couple of hoops with the town. The town is accepting of it. That's an important, obviously, portion of this. And then suddenly, you know, you're in the range where this gets picked up by the local cog and put on the list for potential federal funding. And DOT recognizes it as East Coast Greenway, which is the recognized spine trail in Connecticut, which means it automatically gets more consideration than potentially something else, you know, the Housatonic River Trail or whatever, which is, you know, which are legitimate connective trails, but they aren't considered to be the spine trail in Connecticut. And one of the reasons why I'm talking to you today is because obviously I'd love to build another piece of the East Coast Greenway, but I'd also love to build something, you know, within the Merritt Parkway corridor. Now, having said that, could something be built in this town that doesn't necessarily be inside the corridor? How's that? And the answer is sure. I mean, you can build a side path along that road, for instance. That's, you know, perfectly acceptable. But I guess what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way is there needs to be a project, a scope of project, right? And then there needs to be some public acquiescence.
So approved by the town, but funded by the cog?
Well, either through the cog or by one of the Connecticut bonding programs. I mean, there's more places to find construction money than there used to be. That's the good news. The bad news is you have to bootstrap it to where you can get in line for that money. And that just takes sometimes some cobbling together of funds and, you know, maybe some help, you know, with town staff. But it can be done. It's being done a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and also for some of the new members of the committee, I think we've done that with the smaller projects, certainly with, you know, with the Bike Ped Committee, whether it be funding that came from the town of Fairfield through Bill Hurley and some of the grants he's able to get, or even with Santina in the health department. She's been very instrumental in getting some of our bike paths, you know, a bike lane, not lanes, but routes approved and things like that. So yeah, you know, it's good to hear kind of the larger picture and what other towns in the state are doing. And before we move on to some of our other items on the agenda, is there any other questions from the committee? Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Bruce. I really do appreciate you taking the time out to come and join us tonight and share some of this. It's kind of interesting for me when I was meeting with you last time, just to hear about some of these projects around the state and how they're being funded, and the fact that the state government, the federal government is providing money to do some of this stuff. So I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. And it's bruce@greenway.org. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate, please. That's what I'm here for.
And Bruce, would you share that presentation, or do we have a copy of that presentation?
I'll send it along. Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm happy
If you
to.
send it to me, I'll forward it to the group. That'd be great.
Good.
Yeah, that would be great since I'm on the phone as well.
Oh, right. Yeah, no,
I'll make sure I send it on to you, Bill. And
yeah,
that's
it's
a
nice
nice
to see the
segue
pictures.
because, there's a nice segue because our next item on the agenda is Bill Hurley, our town engineering update. And we had Bill on the agenda. We had the sidewalk design and construction for the infrastructure bill, Pequot Avenue, some of your other projects, and some of the other sidewalk things. So I'll just turn it over to you if you want to take it over.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Just to give an update, it constantly changes weekly. Even last week, the senator, the representative Himes' office had solicited some possible projects. I put some in, but then you found out that they had to be on the transportation improvement plan of MetroCog. So some of them are not going to be able to fly for that one. However, there are other ones where the infrastructure bill or the American Rescue Act, and that could be anywhere from the town getting, I'll just say, $100,000 to almost $10 million worth of sidewalk improvements or whatever. So I've been just working on estimates of costs and locations for that area. And if you just give me about 10 seconds, let me get that folder.
While you're looking, I'll say we're probably going to go for the 10 million.
I'll second that.
I don't think we don't need to vote on that. So.
And again, these are not official by any stretch of the imagination, and they probably have to be vetted, much like the Merritt Parkway one. We're probably bound to have people support it, but then other people might not. But on the list here, just to give at least everyone an idea, because maybe you can think of another one, or maybe you think there's no way we'll be able to do it. But Pequot Avenue, Round Hill, Fairfield Woods Road, Wilson Street, Judge Street, and Fairfield Center miscellaneous. And then we have maybe some other ones that are filling in the sidewalk network. South Pine Creek Road, Jefferson Street, Stratfield Road north of Owen Fish, the McKinley School neighborhood, Lower Black Rock Turnpike, Mill Hill Terrace, Penfield Road, Birch Road, Duck Farm, Paper Mill. And one of the things about all this is almost everywhere but Greenfield Hill, which doesn't really have sidewalks, gets represented. So if we do get a large pot of money, it will be spread all over town as opposed to one area, and I think the town officials like that idea. So I'll definitely keep you posted on it and see. As I said, it may be all political, and they're really going to look for, bridge construction or whatever, but in some of the things that have come across our way, it's even as broad as water, broadband, sewers, but then anything that was hit economic or COVID related. And so the first group that I mentioned, Pequot, Round Hill, the downtown, that's all at least ones that go to some sort of business district. And so we're, going to use the approach of, COVID hit the businesses pretty hard. And by constructing these sidewalks that will lead neighborhoods into the business district. And so far, so good. But like I said, we're still, getting the details as they come in. But I just wanted to share at least those locations and let everybody know that, engineering and public works are trying to get some of these projects on the list, if you know what I mean. And then
Excellent.
as far as some of the other ones, I just haven't had the time really yet to go through. We did a little sign survey. I still have to glance for the Pequot Avenue, I believe was paved, or it's going to be paved. I haven't even had a chance to go out in the field for that and see. But you know, signage and safety improvements were discussed, I think, at a meeting or two ago. We're still on that, and it's just a balance, you know, trying to do all the different things. So.
Thanks. I think Judith is on the call, and she actually emailed me right before we started and said she had an update about the Pequot Avenue.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Bill, I'm so happy to hear that Pequot Avenue is on top of your list. And yes, it's been beautifully paved, so thank you very much. We were out there today with Sergeant Mike Paris and the other folks in his crash patrol, looking at placements for solar speed signs. And so we're moving forward on that, figuring out funding. And yeah, we're ready to go on talking to various neighbors about a sidewalk. So look forward to chatting with you about possibilities of placement for sidewalks. And Sergeant Paris, they were just jumping up and down saying, wow, sidewalks along here where it's so congested with bikers, walkers, strollers. Everybody likes coming down to the beach, as they should. So thank you very much. And oh, my question to the bike committee actually is, were there bike chevrons on the road there previously for the bike path?
Yeah, Judith, I can answer that one. Matter of fact, I talked to the DPW supervising foreman today, and he had mentioned that he wanted me to give the location so they could put them back. So they do have intentions of putting them back, just to let you know.
Great, great. Thank you, thank you. We were
Yeah,
conflicted
Bill,
about whether or not they were there.
Yeah, we also had those fog lines, you know, like the white lines through the parts where we could put them as well. So if they could put those back, that would be great.
Okay, hopefully I have the map or Google kind of shows you the way, but if anyone has any information, feel free to share it to me.
I'll see if I can dig up the...
It's just a matter of locating it.
I think I have the file that we sent to you with me and Ed. Remember we did the drive arounds and
yeah.
I'll see if I can find that.
If it's readily available, feel free to resend it. As I said, I should have it anyway, but
I'll look for it.
Files are getting rather large, so.
I know the feeling.
We were hoping the fog lines would be extended. So on you know, all the part from Westway all the way down to Beach that has been paved, so that there will be clear delineation for cars as to where their lanes are, and then conversely for walkers and bikers for where they can sort of step into when cars are coming along. So yeah,
right,
previously
that would be dependent. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That would be dependent on the roadway width. If the road is less than 20 feet wide, we won't be able to do that. If it's 24 feet wide or preferably, you know, 28, but I don't think it is. Certainly in certain sections, I know it's a lot narrower than that.
Right.
Then we can do lots of things with the lines there. But we'll look into that, and if it's possible, we'll try to extend it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just so you know,
no,
the only thing that
they measured today, and it was at a very narrow point. It was indeed 21. But if we go for that 10 foot per lane, it gives us a little bit of shoulder to step into there, and that's really clearly one of the narrowest points.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Bill, just so you know, the only file that I have is actually the signage plan. I don't have any, like the chevrons or anything for.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
I'm sure I have it. So, and then that would
Okay.
be it. I'm not sure if there's anything else. I do have to get some easements information out. So I'm probably going to leave the group right now. But if there's any other questions, let me know right now, or you could certainly email me if anyone has anything else for me.
okay. Thank you, Bill.
Any questions for Bill? All right, thanks. Oh, Sarah has a question. Sorry, before you go, Bill.
Bill, I just wanted to say thank you so much for putting Wilson Street on your list. That's so exciting. Thank you.
You're welcome. But that's kind of, as I mentioned before in the very beginning when the Bike and Ped group was formed. Unfortunately, things in government go a lot slower than what people want them to do. But it is amazing when you take a look at a 5-year period or a 10-year period of how much can be done. And having the support, especially if some of these grants ever become competitive, you know, having the support of the Bike and Ped Committee, having the support of the neighborhoods, or can you imagine, as you know, when we had that meeting with 60 people show up, that gets the attention of the state reps and the town officials, and that goes a long way in, showing the demand and the potential use and the support for the projects. And knowing that I had that is one of the reasons why I put Wilson on there. So it was because you and your neighbors' efforts as well.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a great step in the right direction, and I'm excited to see what happens going forward. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Otherwise, I'll head out, and certainly I'm always available through email or phone call.
All right, thanks, Bill. You're the best.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Bye now.
All right. I don't think Santina's there, is she? Santina, are you here? I wasn't sure if she'd called in. I guess she's not here, but the one thing I did have from the health department is, and Sarah, you had mentioned this, was the project options for the $9,000 public health grant. And did you want to mention anything about that?
Yeah, sure. So, of course, it's a town-wide grant. And so if somebody knows of a place where it can be utilized, not in the Stratfield neighborhood where I live, absolutely would love to hear about that. But of course, I live in Stratfield, and so I'm more familiar with our neighborhood's needs. And there's a couple of options that Bill Pollock and I have talked about. The first one I'll mention is if folks are familiar with Lincoln Park, which is affectionately called Jackman Park because it's on Jackman Avenue in Stratfield. Only one side. It's got 3 sides that are on the street, and only one side of the park has a sidewalk, and the main entrance to the park doesn't even have a sidewalk. So that's a possibility to have a safer route to the park because it's fenced in. It's a fenced in park, so you have to walk either in the road or on the grass to get to the entrances. And the other option that Bill Pollock and I were talking about was relating to the Four Corners project. The sidewalk, if you're familiar with that area, right after New Street, at Fairfield Woods and New Street, the sidewalk ends. There's no sidewalk. So Bill thought perhaps because once the Four Corners project is completed, we're going to need greater connectivity, and we're hoping to at some point make safety improvements to the Churchill, Fairfield Woods, Wilson Street intersection, but to continue the sidewalk from New Street to Churchill along Fairfield Woods, which would probably be about 200 feet, which I think that $9,000 grant will cover just about, is another possibility and would align nicely with the Four Corners. So those were 2 that we were thinking of, and I'd be happy to talk to Santina as well, but I welcome your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, those definitely seem like pretty good projects. 9,000 is not a lot of money, and I know with sidewalks, it can be eaten up in like 3 feet sometimes, but in the past, sometimes we've used those for, signages for things or or striping. We've added some new like bike routes and things like that, but definitely sidewalks is something. It seems like Bill's got a lot of projects that he's put out there for sidewalks as well. I'm not sure if anybody else has any other ideas. It's best usually to have Santina, because sometimes she'll have a specific idea or things that she's working on. So we might kind of just hold on to that until we get her back on the line. Does anybody else want to make any comments? Or all right. I did actually get an email from Officer Wickman. He did apologize that he wasn't able to make it tonight, but if there's any police issues, definitely we can reach out to him, and hopefully we'll be back in person at some point in the near future, so we can kind of move forward on that. Hey,
Keith?
look at this. It's at the 7
Keith?
o'clock. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, would you send me the email that Gary responded to you with? Because I've tried to reach him a few times. Because I had one thought about maybe reaching out to the safety committee and see if we couldn't find out who in the Fairfield Police Department does their social media, and if we couldn't do some sort of bike friendly, pedestrian friendly signage that they might use on occasion. And so I was reaching out to him, but I haven't been able to get any response from him.
And it's like the first time he's ever responded to me from that.
Yeah.
So let me just. It's just the it's the Wickman email that like it's CC'd to all of the.
Is it G Wickman?
Like G Wickman at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to see if Bill
you,
Hurley. I'll ask Bill if he has another. I just want to get somebody in the safety team, and I used to have Scott's cell phone, and I could text him, but he's no longer with the force.
Yeah.
So I just want to find someone who I can connect with.
Judy, who did you meet with today? You said somebody from the police department.
Yeah, Parrish.
Yeah,
I know.
We had Parrish, and we had let's see who else. Jenkins and Lieutenant Koval and Medvehi. So 4.
And Officer Parrish, is that Mike? Is his first name Mike?
Yeah,
What's his first
Mike,
name?
and he's Michael.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, because then I can know I know what his email address would be. I'll try him. I do know who he is. I've met him a few times.
Right. Yeah,
I'm
but
sure
if
you
you're
can reach out to like the Facebook site itself and just send them a message, like to the Fairfield Police, and just say who you are, and please send me an email or direct me to the social media person.
Well, I thought going through the safety, I just wanted to kind of introduce the idea to them too, because coming from the safety unit, they'll be more supportive as well. That was my thought.
Yeah. This is the crash unit. Yes.
Especially with everybody getting back on their bikes now.
Yeah, definitely. We might want to try to dust off one of the safety messages that we put into the Select Woman's newsletter and just maybe dress it up a bit or change a couple of things so it's a little bit newer, and try to get that out there as well. But they've always been very supportive of sending that information out.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And safety about cars too, so that cars recognize vulnerable users.
Definitely. Okay, actually, this is kind of nice because we're exactly on the right time of the agenda. I did want to just mention that I did have a meeting with the Merritt Parkway. This is kind of what started the conversation with Bruce Donald, because that's where I met Bruce. Pangley had reached out to me, and there was a bit of a meeting. Bill Hurley was there as well, some of the people from the Merritt Parkway Trail. And so, I'm not going to say too much about it, but the idea is still not dead. It's still a possibility. The idea of a first mile or 2 miles between exit 44 and 47 is still, being talked about. And so it's one of those things that, again, it's a very, it's a large project, but it's not an extraordinarily large project, and so it's one of those things that I'm going to keep trying to push forward, move forward. We'll see what happens. This is whether it's part of the committee or even just personal to the various members. It's something that I'm interested in trying to kind of push forward personally, and it would be a wonderful thing if we can make this happen at some point in our town. I think it would be a great tourist attraction, and like Bruce had mentioned, I like the comment that these projects get approved when they connect things. And I think we're seeing this with even sidewalks, where we're saying, okay, which sidewalks are going to be the first ones to be repaired in town? Well, places like Round Hill Road, where you already have a sidewalk on most of it, but you're missing a section. Or, even Stratfield, there's just sections of the Stratfield Road or 59, they're missing. Jefferson Street, there is no sidewalk at all. And then you have 2 university campuses connecting things. So, and there's various places, and he mentioned a lot of those things. So connectivity, I think, is one of those things where we will start seeing success. So that's just a little overview of that. I'm not sure, Bruce, if you wanted to say anything about your thoughts on that meeting or.
Well, I guess being new to this, I guess I might not be focusing on the right things, but it just seems like there's a substantial amount of pushback that we're going to receive if we try to do something on the merit specifically. And what the Sacred Heart idea made it so attractive is it looks like it could be done in a way that maybe is a little less obvious, and achieves the aim of getting something that's close to the merit that makes a connection from, it could be Mohegan, or trails up to Pequannock Trail or something like that, but do it in a way that doesn't raise the hackles of the Merritt Parkway Heritage, whatever they're called, group that's going to fight it until, the cows come home. And so it seemed like that might be a good first step to do that wouldn't necessarily create a tremendous amount of pushback. So I thought that was exciting from that standpoint, because anything that really directly says we're going to put a trail on the Merritt is probably going to not happen anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a project that's been out there for a while, and we'll see where it goes. So I guess we'll just move on. I'll give a quick update. I did just get an email from Jennifer Carpenter. I guess that both you, Bruce, and Scott have been now officially approved by the Board of Selectmen. Is that true?
Yes. So excellent. I think the next step is that we need to go to the town hall and
be sworn
in.
Yep.
Yeah, you get sworn in. So then you're fully indoctrinated. So it's amazing how quickly that happened. Usually, Jennifer, I think, was just trying to push forward and making sure that we didn't. I'm just very happy that we've kind of filled the vacancies on the committee, because it is hard to find some people. And Sarah did a lot of outreach to a lot of people. So thank you for that, Sarah. And there was a lot of very interested, but no thank you. So. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
I also want to say thank you to Judy and Lori from the Pequot Avenue group who came up with the list of names of people that I reached out to. And they all have different commitments right now, but are very interested and perhaps we'll keep their names for the future. I also what's that?
No, I was just going to say that that's definitely true, and of course, members of the public are always welcome. There's people that may be calling in as well, because the public has the ability just to call in and listen. And I have no idea who is actually on the call, but anybody's more than welcome to come. Just make sure you send me what you'd like to say so I can put it onto the agenda.
I also wanted to say, and Keith and I had this conversation a few weeks ago, in looking for new members, I hope going forward, it's always a matter of timing and opportunity, but I definitely want to look for people of color. I think it's important that we have representation that way going as well. I looked in this current process and couldn't find anyone who was interested or available, but I think I'd love to see some more racial and ethnic diversity on this committee as well. Everyone has great, there's great diversity of opinions in different types of backgrounds, but I'd also like to see new forms of diversity on the committee as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just, hopefully if we can find people that would be willing, and we've always tried to get somebody even as age diversity, try to get some of the younger crowd as well, especially people that are more, in tune with the universities or high schools even, that would be willing to serve. So definitely there's a lot of opportunities. And, unfortunately we do have turnover. and there are people that will have to move on. So there's always opportunities. So if you hear people that are interested, just keep them in mind and let us know.
Well,
Do we have a number of people we can have on the committee?
that's what I was going to ask too. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, it's 9 right now.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. And why is that? Was that built in originally when we first, formed the committee? I mean, because the reason I asked, this came up during when I sat in on the forestry committee today, and they were very curious as to why we were limited and why it had been set up that way, and if it wasn't something that we wanted to look at, whether we change that to be a big number, or you have like an advisory committee as well. That's a way to have more voice, even if they're not voting members, but more people involved and a part of the committee. Just a thought.
And I'd have to ask Jennifer about that, because I actually don't know how the committee was created, and I don't know how or if you can add more people, but it's definitely a question we can ask.
My recollection is the board has been voted for this committee to be a 9-person committee. And they set up, interviewed, that you filled in applications and they selected 9 people. I suspect the advisory committee idea could work just fine, but I think going beyond 9 probably needs selectmen approval.
Right, and that's what I thought. I just wanted to sort of put it out there because I thought it was an interesting idea.
Yeah, it is.
Well, what is the size of most committees? Are they bigger? Is that by inference they're larger than our committee?
I sit in on the Sustainable Fairfield Task Force meetings, and I have not I'll be honest, I haven't counted them, but there are usually a good number of participants. And they also are working right now on this Sustainable Connecticut certification, and they have a number of committees, and they have outsiders invited to those committees. So that's a way that they draw in a lot of extra people as well.
You can look at any of the town boards and commissions on the Fairfield website, and you can see the listing. I think 9 is probably pretty much as large as any of them are. I don't think they're any greater than that. Again, the Sustainable Task Force has advisory groups that augment. Yeah. But I think
but
that
you're right, Laura. They may only have officially a set number of members. It's hard to tell because it just gets a large representation at every meeting.
Well, you can tell by going on the town website for it, and I think it's more like 5 than that particular group. So anyway, you can view them.
And is each committee is it 4 years for a commitment for each committee? I know it is for this committee.
Now, our committee is actually varied. Yeah, some do 2 years, some do 3, some do 4.
Oh. Yeah. No, it's actually all 4. But we started in the middle where we had people who started, they had to, what's the word I'm trying to come up with? Because we all started.
They had to, yeah, that's right.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
They couldn't do us all in 4. So and then when we re-upped the first time, then it started a new 4. And now it's 4 and 4. So we are limited to 4.
So here's a fun fact.
Two 4-year terms.
I just went to the Sustainable Fairfield Task Force on the website, and the number of members is 20.
Wow.
So I wish Mary were here, because I'm sure she could tell us a lot more about the background and some of that, but apparently it does allow a number of.
I'm sure we could put some type of effort forward if we wanted to expand. We probably would have to raise up the flagpole and get some buy-in to expand, I would think, right?
And I would wait till you have these people wanting to join. Keith and I are going to be off in a couple of years.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, we need to find a secretary before we bring any more members on. So.
I mean, it's that's part of the problem. We haven't had to remove anybody yet because we haven't reached the whole term of anyone. So it doesn't get easier.
That is true. So Linda, I'll just turn it over to you. You're next up with the Sustainable Task Force. Do you want to fill us in?
Sure. Very interesting meeting as always, and happy Earth Week, everybody. Earth Day is coming up on April 22nd. So Sustainable Fairfield Task Force was focused on their Earth Week events. If you go on to their website, they have a list of different virtual events that they're doing for the week, including an electric vehicle showcase, Healthy Kids Day, number of things going on. So a lot of the meeting last week was spent talking about that. They're also participating in the Shop and Stroll on April 22nd, and they graciously offered to have some of our materials there. So I reached out to Keith and Laura, and they're organizing copies of, I believe, the Complete Streets policy, and we're going to try to have the bike route maps and things like that. So that'll be a little bit of an opportunity to get the word out. And as always, the work continues on the Sustainable Connecticut certification. As a reminder, they have a number of committees set up when they do invite others to join. So if anybody's interested in one of their committees, it's a great opportunity to get involved. The committees focus on energy and built environment, transportation, food and waste, and the natural environment. And they're doing various actions under the Sustainable Connecticut Plan to help get that certification. And the deadline for that is August 25th. So things are ramping up and the committees are very busy with that work. So I think that's really the highlight of what they were doing. And anyone have any questions?
I am good. I'm just actually trying to dig up that she asked me to send some of those maps to her. I'm trying to see if I can find them. I will do that. And then,
Linda.
all right. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
I was going to say, what about the bike handle things that we created?
That's one of the things I was wondering, but I don't know where they are. And Ed, I think, was one who had them. Does somebody
I think
know?
Santina does. I think it's
Okay.
Santina.
Yeah. Because I think that would be a great thing to have there.
I may have some of those. I know I have the Complete Streets brochures we printed. I didn't think to go look downstairs and see if I've got the bike handle. But I'm meeting Mary at noon on Thursday to deliver what I have. If I have them, I'll let you know. I'll check later tonight.
Laura, that would be great. That would be absolutely wonderful. And again, I think it's just a nice opportunity for her to share some of the information since they're participating. So
I do know that
I'm
because they are
sending-
the Sustainable Committee, they didn't want a lot of paper. So
Yes.
my guess is
they wanted
less
everybody
is,
to take pictures of the handouts, which I thought was really clever. Yeah, that's a great idea. But they did say that if we've got things printed or if we can find the bicycle hangers, which are already nicely laminated, they'll take anything like that. But I did think it was kind of clever that they're focusing on not handing out a lot of paper and encouraging people to take pictures during the shop and stroll.
And as I explained, we've printed all sorts of these brochures. If we aren't going to use them, we can burn them.
Exactly.
I thought it was better to actually hand them out
Yeah.
back in the trash.
Yeah.
Kind of the way I was looking at it.
Yep, great. I just sent off the maps to you guys that I had while you were talking. All right, forestry.
That would be me. Also, just wanted to follow up too on the sustainability. Did you mention the Y on Saturday, Linda?
I
that's
didn't
part of
mention that
Earth Week.
specifically, but that's, that's part of the Earth Day events.
Yeah.
Correct.
So,
yeah.
And that's 10 to 1 at the Y. So I
Yeah.
think if whatever Mary has, I imagine, some of that information might go over there as well.
Yeah.
So the Forestry Committee, well, there's a lot of information going on, but I'm going to, sort of make it shorter. The tree warden did talk about, they have about 185 trees to plant this spring from their program of people who requested that last year. They have already planted 50 last week, and they have another 30 to 40 that are being planted this week. He thinks they'll be done by May. They are already taking requests for the fall, and they've already had over 50 requests, of which then they go out and view the sites and try to determine what's the best tree to plant in the area. So that's been it's an amazing program. And they're working with, I think, some students at Sacred Heart who are putting together like predictive plans on the trees that they have planted over the past I'm not sure what the number of years is, 5 or 10 years, what tree was planted, where it was planted, and what the health of it is now. So if it died, if it didn't, what's doing best in what locations, et cetera. So it's kind of an interesting, thing that they can really look and say, this is the best plant for your area, and sort of help the, the residents who are asking for a tree to be planted and suggest what's best. They're also doing some commemorative trees. I think there's one going downtown, and that'll be done by mid-May. They're also are putting together a brochure on the right tree in the right place, something that they can sort of give out to the residents when they're asking about how to plant a tree, what's the best way, where should it be, and that's more for residents who want to put trees in their backyards, and they're looking for a little help. So I think it's a really neat brochure. It's very simplistic but easy to understand and read. One of their members is also talking about putting together a sort of a proposal on looking at the future of downtown plantings, how to access the trees, how will they be maintained, and because every tree has a lifespan, and some of these trees, the tree warden saying there's some trees down there that if they prune them again, there's not going to be anything left. So looking at those, and that's a bigger project. I think they're sort of tabling that at the moment, but they'd like to look at that. It would also, if they do look into that kind of a proposal, it would have to take into consideration complete streets. The bike ped, group would want to be involved. So there's a lot more to that, but I think it was a really interesting idea of what they want to go forward with. So that was pretty much it, without getting into the utility information, which is, I wouldn't be able to explain it well. Mary could do that better. So that's my update.
Thank you. Excellent. Anybody, it's good to see that. I'm really happy that we're starting to connect with some of these other committees and groups in town, just because it's something we hadn't done for a while. And Scott and Bruce, something to think about. We do have some other committees that we don't really have much representation with. One is the police department, actually, and the police commission. And there's a few other ones as well. So it's just something to think about. I'll have to go through the list of what else is out there. And if there's anything you're particularly interested in, just let me know. Even if you want to work with some of these other groups as well, just, let us know, because we're trying to connect more with other groups in town.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Do we have someone with planning and zoning right now?
Planning and zoning, no, actually, we do not.
I think that could be very important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put that down. Planning and zoning, like Parks and Rec, those are things that, we have not really done too much about. All right. Well, maybe we just have a couple of things on the Pequot Avenue we kind of talked about already, and Old Post Road. Those are just some of the things, Sarah. I know I just kind of kept this in from the agenda last time. I'm not sure if there's any other updates on it, or Board of Realtors. I'll just turn it over to you if there's anything you wanted to mention about that.
No, Judy did a wonderful job updating about Pequot Avenue. I don't have any more information about Old Post Road. I have contacted Mike multiple times through multiple methods, whether it's calling, texting, emailing. And I know real estate is crazy right now, and that's probably why he's not getting back to me. The last time we spoke, we spoke for quite some time, and I explained to him, we're looking at different ideas to try to do a grant, one of these placemaking grants. And he said, well, forward me your ideas and I'll talk. I have a committee meeting this week, Board of Realtors meeting, and I'll propose those ideas to them and get their feedback and get back to you. And he never did. So, and I followed up after, I waited a week, and then I followed up like 3 or 4 times, and he never got back to me. Okay, so that's all I know.
All right, that sounds good. And Nate, unfortunately, is not here, but he's been working with the Bike Ped Master Plan, trying to do some updates on that. Laura, you had a conversation with Mark Barnhart in Economic Development. I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you. Mark and I had a very good conversation. He was very glad that we reached out to him, and he also mentioned he appreciated the work the committee has done on the Black Rock Turnpike study and the Post Circle studies, and hopes to have that kind of participation going forward. He talked about something that came up earlier in our presentations about making sure you get things on a plan in order to get them funded. You don't just ask for something, you have to actually put together a plan. And in light of that, we talked about sharing sidewalk issues between us. And after listening to all the sidewalk ideas we've got that were presented today, I think somebody should sit down with Mark with Economic Development and get his take on which ones he would like to see. I mean, it's obviously from his perspective, but this is the kind of cooperation that I think we ought to promote between the two groups. He also mentioned that he has been thinking for a while about doing something to make a walking route, a wayfinding route in downtown with QR codes along the way. And maybe we could work on something like that with him. Funding has been an issue. It's probably not a big project, but it would need some funding. And lastly, he would be interested if anybody here would like to review the Experience Fairfield website that he has and any ideas to enhance it and help promote the town. So that's what I have from him. Anybody have any questions or ideas, things I can take back?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if there's somebody that would be willing to work more with Mark as well, it would be great to have a kind of a regular dialogue with him, because the economic development is definitely a great ally to have for a lot of things. He's got
Well,
connections to
do you have a
businesses and
list
things
then,
like that.
Keith, you could share with the newbies here as to what kind of committees are that you'd like us to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess,
I was going
liaise
to
with?
follow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to follow up with you guys and just kind of share some of the documents that I have. I do apologize. My day job has been taking up a lot of time, and unfortunately, I try to get the emails, but at the end, I've been up since 4:30 this morning on Zooms, and I have another day like this tomorrow. So it's I'm just trying to put up as many fires as I can. But nice thing, actually, tomorrow I have meetings with Chris Shays, Blumenthal, and Jim Himes. So for international
Trifecta.
education. So yeah, it's going to be Zoom meetings for multiple offices. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I will definitely share that with you. Laura, did you have anything for the POCD?
I still haven't gotten to that. I had other things going on in my life, but hopefully I get to it soon. My taxes are done,
That's good. You know what? I think I forgot to put it on the agenda, but did you have a financial update?
Well, it's not on the agenda, so I really shouldn't cover it tonight.
Okay, we'll do it next time. And then really the last thing that's officially on the agenda was the World Remembrance Day for 11/21. So Sarah, I'll turn that to you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So yeah, World Remembrance Day, I mentioned this at our last meeting. It's Judy saw it, I think it's the third Sunday in November. And I'd like to put something together. We have plenty of time to plan it, and hopefully COVID will be much more behind us at that point. Still like to do it outside. I think that's the smartest and safest thing to do. But I'd love to get feedback. I'd like to keep it somewhat short and sweet. And some of the ideas Judy has, and I've talked about it a little bit. I'm going to be the planner, but I've appreciated her feedback. Is to invite people who have had loved ones who have been the victims of traffic violence, whether it was a fatality or they were injured. If they would like to come, they don't have to come, but if they'd like to participate in honoring those that we have lost whose lives have been forever changed one way or another, we'd love to have them there. We want to invite, obviously, our local representatives, our state representatives, our U.S. senators and reps. Whether or not they'll come, we still need to invite them and have town leadership there. We'd also love to have a moment of silence to recognize the victims. Perhaps led by some. Are we allowed to have religious leaders not say a prayer, but like to lead the attendees in a moment of silence. I certainly don't want to complicate separation of church and state, but if we need to look into that, I would definitely love to have them there. And also part of the World Day of Remembrance is also recognizing the toll that traffic violence takes on first responders, police, fire, ambulance, medical professionals. It's hard for them too to have to show up to these crashes or deal with the aftermath. It takes a toll on their mental health and their well-being as well. So Judy suggested perhaps having Mike Parris from the Fairfield Police Department or another representative, could speak briefly about their experience, because we want to honor their experience as well. A couple other things we thought about doing in Brooklyn when they do, or New York City when they do their World Day of Remembrance. They've done installations, and other communities have too, where they get a pair of shoes to represent each victim, and they display it in New York City. The last time they did it, they painted them all white. It's a very powerful statement to show just the quantity. We have to talk amongst ourselves. Do we recognize just 2020 and 2021? In 2020, we all know there was a significant uptick in traffic violence with the pandemic because the fewer cars on the road led to people driving less responsibly and more negligently. And how far do we go out? Do we do just the town of Fairfield? Do we do people who are from Fairfield but were affected in other locations? Either they were killed or they were seriously hurt, but their hometown was Fairfield. So that's another thing for consideration. And Judy and I also talked about perhaps ending the event with a couple of things, having our town leaders talk about some of the great things we're doing to try to improve the situation, because we believe it's important to give people hope. To let them know about some of this incredible funding that's coming, whether it's state or federal or local, these projects that are in the pipeline to make things better. And also some legislation like House Bill 5429, we hope will have passed, which will greatly improve some of the pedestrian crosswalks laws, the ability for towns to control their speed limits and reducing speed is a primary way to one of the primary ways to save lives. So bringing up some of the hopeful things, and also finally ending with a walk or bike to the the Mill Plain Road the exit ramp or on ramp where Christine was killed, or the location on Old Post Road where last November the woman was struck and severely injured, and just do a walk or bike to there, maybe leave flowers or do some sort of recognition of the tragedies at those sites. So those are some of the ideas. Would love to hear what you think. If you have other ideas, totally open to those too.
I think it's a great idea. Just one note. I think we lost Mike because that music you heard hearing was the call-in number just started playing music. I think it's because we're over time.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that was going to happen. I apologize about that. I'll follow Mike about that. But yeah, I think that's definitely a great thing we can try to work towards for November. And I think also I really like the idea of trying to finish with the positives and talk about some of the projects that we've been working on and how we can, address some of these issues, and hopefully that we can reduce it to a zero where there is nobody that we have to,
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
tell that news to in the future.
That's the ultimate goal. And I think as much as we need to honor and respect the lives that have been lost and forever impacted, we have to give people we have to inspire people to action. And the way to do that is to give them, constructive, positive ways to go forward. And so that's why we wanted to mention those things as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm not sure if we're gonna lose everything, so I'm just gonna call the meeting to a close and stop the recording, because I know there's another meeting coming up after us, and this is the town's WebEx. So I don't know, again, with special meetings, if we have to have a motion to end the meeting, but we'll do it anyway. So does anybody want to make a motion to end the meeting?
So moved to adjourn.
Everybody's moving. We have Laura and we have Sarah. And okay, so I'm going to officially stop the recording just real quick. Okay.